wonder if ancient rules from the Bible could hold the key to solving some of today's biggest problems, like how to handle debt, ensure fair work, or even pick leaders who truly serve people? Well, we're about to find out. We're diving deep into the book of Deuteronomy today, specifically with chapters 15, 16, and 17. And trust me, these aren't just historical footnotes. They're packed with revolutionary insights that were ahead of their time, and they remain incredibly relevant to our lives today. So stick around, because we're about to unpack some seriously game-changing wisdom. Welcome to the channel, Romans 920. I'm Ronald, and to all our new viewers, a special welcome. If you love digging into God's Word and want to make it clear, practical, and accessible for all levels of Bible readers, well, whether you're just starting out or been studying for years, then you've found your home. Seriously, if you find our discussion today to be helpful, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button right now and join our growing community. We're all about making the Bible come alive. Today we continue with Moses and his grand finale before the Israelites crossed the Jordan and took possession of the promised land to live in. Now, Moses has been given laws on how things are going to shift once they're no longer camping in the desert. But before we jump into today's verse-by-verse breakdown, let's get a bird's-eye view of what these crucial chapters are all about. Think about this as your Deuteronomy crash. Chapter 15 is about social justice. This chapter talks about the year of release. It's a time every 7 years when debts are forgiven and servants are set free. It's all about fairness, generosity, and helping those in need. Chapter 16 is worship and festivals. This section covers 3 big yearly celebrations. Passover, which remembers freedom from Egypt, the Festival of Weeks, or Pentecost, which celebrates God's provision, and the Festival of Tabernacles, or Booths, which remembers God's presence and faithfulness. Chapter 17 is about justice and leadership. Here, the focus is on a fair justice system and how to choose a king. It gives rules to ensure that leaders stay humble and follow God's law, not their own. Now let's open our Bibles and dig into Deuteronomy chapter 15, verses 1 to 3. This introduces God's concept of the year of release. It's a biblical economic reset occurring every 7 years. Now during this time, all debts between Israelites were to be canceled. This radical idea was designed to prevent the community members from falling into endless debt cycles, thereby combating extreme poverty and promoting economic fairness. It represents an ancient form of debt relief. In verses 4 to 6, now this is fascinating. God says that there should ideally be no poor among you. We see that in verse 4. If they faithfully obey, yet he states that there will always be poor people in the land in verse 11. So how do we make sense of this? The no poor is God's perfect idea for society living in full obedience and generosity. And the always poor acknowledges the reality of human brokenness and the ongoing need for compassion. God promises to bless them so abundantly that if they follow his ways, they'll be lending to other nations, not borrowing. It's about God's blessing and responsibilities. In verse 7 to 11, the text emphasizes God's desire for generosity toward poor Israelites, particularly concerning debt. Now, it is considered a sin to withhold assistance as the year of release approaches. The passage promises blessings for those who are open-handed, highlighting the importance of personal giving and care for others. In verses 12 to 18, just like debts, Hebrew servants who had to sell themselves due to poverty, they were to be set free after 6 years of service. But here's the kicker. They weren't sent away empty-handed. They were to be given generous provisions like livestock, grain, and wine, literally from the abundance that the Lord had blessed them with. Why? Because God reminded them that they too were slaves in Egypt and the Lord your God redeemed them. Their own experience of freedom was to fuel their compassion. Now, this is about biblical fair labor practices and remembering where they came from. Verses 19 to 23 details the dedication of every firstborn male animal to the Lord. These animals designated for God were not to be used for labor, but were to be consumed annually in God's presence at the central sanctuary. If an animal had a defect, it could be eaten at home, though its blood was not to be consumed. Now, this practice served to emphasize that all blessings originate from God and that the first and best of everything is his, serving as a tangible expression of worship and gratitude. Now, chapter 15 is a powerful blueprint for social justice and economic ethics. Its core message, true prosperity, just isn't about accumulating wealth. It's about using it to ensure everyone in society has a fair chance and that the most vulnerable are cared for. For us today, this means supporting initiatives that fight poverty, advocating for fair wages, being generous with our time and resources, and remembering that our blessings are ultimately from God, meant to be stewarded for his purposes and to help others. It challenges us to actively seek to alleviate suffering and build more equitable communities. Now, this is truly about living out the Christian compassion. Chapter 16 is about annual festivals and remembering God's faithfulness. In verses 1 to 8, it's the Passover and Festival of Unleavened Bread. Now, this festival commemorates Israel's dramatic escape from slavery in Egypt. It was observed annually with the sacrifices of the Passover lamb and eaten unleavened bread for 7 days. No yeast allowed. This symbolized the haste of their departure and also spiritually putting away sin. This festival was a vital yearly reminder of God's incredible redemptive act and their identity as a free people. In verses 9 to 12, the Festival of Weeks or Pentecost is celebrated as God's provision. Now, 50 days after Passover, after the barley harvest, came the Festival of Weeks, which we know as Pentecost. This was a harvest festival where Israelites brought a freewill offering proportional to their blessing. It was a time of pure joy celebrated before the Lord with everyone, families, servants, Levites, widows, orphans. And again, it was a reminder to remember that they were slaves in Egypt. Now, this festival celebrates God's bountiful provision and giving of the law at Mount Sinai. It's about the harvest celebration and thankfulness. Verses 13 to 17, the Festival of Tabernacles or Booths was about remembering God's presence in their journey. This was the final major festival celebrated after the harvest. For 7 days, Israelites lived in temporary shelters, booths or tabernacles, to remember their 40 years of wandering in the desert, where God faithfully provided for them. It was a time of immense joy. These 3 festivals were the times all Israelite males were required to appear before the Lord at the central sanctuary. And they had to bring their offerings. No one was to come empty-handed. Everyone gave according to God's blessings. This teaches us the communal worship and remembering God's journey with us. Now, verses 18 to 20, we shift gear a little bit. This section emphasizes the importance of a fair legal system. The Israelites were to appoint judges and officers in every town to administer justice impartially. No distorting justice, no showing favoritism or taking bribes. Why? Because bribery blinds the wise and corrupts justice. The core command, justice and only justice, you shall pursue. This is fundamental for a society that thrive under God. Verses 21 and 22 are about the prohibition of idolatry. One God only. It's a quick but critical reminder that there were to be no Asherah poles or sacred pillars for pagan worship. These were utterly detestable to the Lord. Now, this hammers home the point of singular devotion required by God. No mixing their worship with pagan practices. It's about pure worship. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 16 highlights the vital role of worship and remembrance and communal celebration and building a strong faith. These festivals weren't just ancient rituals. They were powerful experiences that shaped Israel's identity and reminded them of God's constant faithfulness. Now, for us today, this means making time for corporate worship, celebrating God's goodness in our lives, and intentionally remembering how He has worked in our past. It also underscores the importance of impartial justice and warns us against allowing anything that subtly takes God's rightful place in our hearts, whether it's money, success, or anything else. This chapter truly teaches us about biblical gratitude, and Deuteronomy chapter 17 now is about justice, authority, and kingship. In verses 1 to 7, the section details severe penalties for idolatry. If someone, male or female, was found worshiping other gods, which is a direct violation of the first commandment, a thorough investigation was required. If confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses, they were to be stoned to death outside the city. Now, this harshness shows how truly serious idolatry was in God's eyes. It threatened the very foundation of their covenant with Him. The witnesses casting the first stone added a layer of grave responsibility. It's a stark reminder of the consequences of spiritual rebellion. In verses 8 to 13, Moses anticipates that some legal cases would be too complex for local judges, so he institutes a kind of supreme court system. People were to go to the Levitical priests or the judges at the central sanctuary, and their decision, guided by God, was final and binding. Anyone who arrogantly disregarded their ruling was to be put to death. This established a clear chain of authority and ensured consistent justice across the land. It's a foundational principle for biblical legal systems and respecting appointed authority. Verses 14 through 20 are the law concerning a king. This is truly remarkable. God anticipated Israel will eventually want human kings, even though He is their ultimate king. So He gives specific, incredibly wise guidelines. conditions. First, the selection of the king must be chosen by the Lord from among the people, not a foreigner, and this ensured loyalty to Israel's covenant. Second, limitations on power. Now, the king was not to acquire excessive horses to avoid relying on military might over God, nor take many wives, which led to idolatry for Solomon, nor accumulate vast amounts of personal wealth. These restrictions were designed to keep the kings humble and dependent on God. Third, the king's personal Bible study. Crucially, the king was commanded to write his copy of the law of Deuteronomy and read it daily. This was to teach him reverence for God, obedience to his laws, and to prevent him from thinking that he was above his people. The goal, a long, just, and humble reign. Now, this is the biblical model for servant leadership. Deuteronomy chapter 17 is all about establishing and upholding justice and accountability in society. From dealing with serious faith breaches to setting up frameworks for national leadership, its central message is that all authority, whether in the courts or government, must ultimately submit to God's law. Now, for us today, this means advocating for impartial justice in our legal system, holding our leaders accountable to high ethical standards, and recognizing that true leadership is about humble service and adherence to timeless principles, not just wielding power. It challenges us to pray for our leaders and to encourage them to govern wisely and justly. This chapter is a timeless guide for biblical leadership and for good government. So there you have it, a powerful journey through these 3 chapters in the book of Deuteronomy. From the radical compassion of the year of Jubilee to the joyful and reflective celebrations of the annual festival, and finally to the foundational principles of justice and righteous leadership. Now, these chapters offer timeless wisdom for building a society that honors God and genuinely cares for its people. They remind us that our faith isn't just a private matter. It has profound implications for how we live in community and how we treat the vulnerable, also how we govern ourselves. Now, before you go, I have a quick favor to ask. If you found this video insightful, helpful, or any part of the message touched your heart, please do me 3 things. First, click the like button, which helps the video reach more people. 2, leave a comment below. What was your biggest takeaway from these chapters? I love hearing your thoughts and connecting with you. And 3, share the video with someone you know who wants to understand the Bible better. Your engagement helps us grow this community and continue making God's Word accessible to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today in this deep dive in the book of Deuteronomy. Keep digging into the Word, and I can't wait to see you in our next video as we continue on our journey. Have a great day, and God bless.